Welcome guys, in this tutorial I will show you how to create a simple high score system through connecting your VR Unity game or any Unity game to MongoDB Atlas, which is a cloud database. It's easy to use and it's very versatile. You can now create cross-platform games or multiplayer games. You can do whatever you want with this database. It's very versatile. So if you got any issues, there's a Patreon link in the description to the full project and all the code. You can also ask me if you got questions or issues and I will answer. So let's start. Like and subscribe. Head over to mongodb.com/cloud and create a free account. Select a shared cluster that's free. You can then easily upgrade if you like, and it will obviously be faster and you will have more storage. But if you're only gonna store some text, 0.5 GB will last forever. Almost, of course. And here we go. This is the cluster interface. So click connect, and here you can add an IP to whitelist, but we do not need to do that now. Just create a username and a password. You need to remember these, at the very least the password. So, oh, not that one. I'm just gonna do test password. And create a MongoDB user. Great. And then later we will do the IP thing, not right now, and we will also get the connection string for the application, but first we need to deal with the IP. So go to network access, add an IP, and just allow access for any IP, because we want any users of our game to be able to access this database. So go back to the cluster interface by clicking cluster, and now you can click on collection, add my own. I'm calling this database HighScoreDB, and the collection HighScore collection, just to make it very obvious what I'm doing here. So let's create an empty game object and call it database. And that's my dog, if you hear that sound. Now create a script. I'm calling it database access. And just open up the script. And at the very top of this script, we want a variable that's the Mongo client. So I'm calling it client equals new Mongo client. And this is inside here. We want to add a connection string, but we have an issue right now. We are using Unity. Normally, we would just download the NuGet package to get this to work, but we cannot do that with Unity. It's a different story, so we need to add the DLLs to the Unity project. So create a folder, call it database, and inside that folder create another folder, call it plugins. Make sure you spell this correctly. It needs to be exactly like this. And then inside this folder, we add the DLLs. Now I spent quite a few hours modifying these to work with Unity, so they are available on patreon.com. You can download them there. And now we can access the Mongo client inside our script. Select Mongo client, Alt enter and import the using, and you can type it in manually if you like as well. Then go back to the MongoDB website and find the connection string by pressing connect, and then look up C#.NET 2.5 or later, and then copy this whole connection string. We're gonna paste that into the Mongo client. And right here inside a string, not outside a string. There we go. And you need to change the password. Remember, I chose test password, and you cannot use my string. I will remove this from my cluster after this video, so you need to create your own string. Next, we need to create the iMongo database, the variable for the database, and the iMongo collection, which is a generic collection, and we will use a JSON document. And I'm gonna call this one collection. But you also have to select JSON document, hit Alt Enter, and import the using. There we go. Now that works. So in the start function, set the database to client.getDatabase, and inside here the string for what you named your database. And I don't remember what I named mine, so I'm gonna have to look it up. Go to collections, and to the left you see HighScoreDB. That's the database name. And we gotta get the collection equals database dot get collection, and that's a JSON document. And then what you named your collection. For me, it's HighScore collection. Next, we can try this out. This should now work. We should have a connection and be able to interact with our database straight from Unity. So I'm just gonna create a fake JSON document to add to the database. I'm gonna call it, let's say the username of the player is username and the score is 100. And then we do collection.insert1, and we want to insert the document. So now if we hit play, we should upload username and 100 to the collection. So let's test it out. And we do not seem to have any errors, so we can go to the website, refresh it, and right there it works. Awesome. So now we can remove the whole test statement we did right there, remove the update function as well, we do not need that, and create a public async void save score to database. And async, it's async programming. If you do not know what that is, that means that we can upload and download from the database without stopping the game. If you do not make it asynchronous, then the whole game will stop and freeze until we save the data to the database. This way the game will continue, and we can just update the score in the UI whenever it's done. Hope that makes sense. You can Google asynchronous programming if you want. So I'm creating a new JSON document from the in parameters username and score that we can send to this method whenever we need to save something, and a wait keyword before collection.insert1 async. Make sure that it works asynchronously. Next, we also want to be able to get all the scores from the server. So I'm calling this method get scores from database. And I'm also going to create an inline class to represent a high score at the server. So this is just a simple class that will have two properties. One is the name of the user, and one is the score of the user. There we go. So first I create a variable that represents just everything inside the collection. This statement will find any document in the collection we are targeting. There are many different methods. If you only want to get a specific document, you can look it up in the MongoDB documentation. And since it's asynchronous, it returns a task, and we need to await the task to get the actual score. Now we're going to construct a list of high scores from these scores, because that's only a JSON object. So we will get a string from that. So let's do scores awaited to list. Now we have a list of strings, all the entries in the collection, and normally we will use a NuGet package and translate the JSON into the object, but since this is Unity and it's beyond the scope of this tutorial how to get NuGet packages. It's a pain in the ass like the DLLs from earlier. So instead I'm just gonna do some old school string manipulation to get the data from the JSON string. We need to import the task threading. So in the deserialize method, I will just extract the important information from the raw JSON and populate the properties in a new high score object, which we will return from the deserialize method. I'm gonna try to take this step by step so you can see what I do. It's only simple, normal string manipulation, nothing fancy. First of all, we're gonna call the database and get all the data, but we need to remove this later. This is only for testing purposes. And I'm gonna press F5 to go into debug mode and see how the string looks when we get it from the database. Now when we press play, we're going to call the database and return all the data in the specific collection. And this is what gets returned. We get a list of strings that looks like this. So I'm gonna save this right here so I can remember. It's easier that I can see straight away what I'm trying to work with, what string I'm working with. So first I'm gonna remove the whole first part. I don't care about the ID really for this high score list. So I'm gonna use substring, and I'm gonna go from the index. I want a substring from the index of these two characters starting there, and I want it to go. I want it to start 4 characters before this, 1, 2, 3, 4, right at the start of the username. And then just take the rest of the string. So I will have username till the end of the string. And I will hit debug and play to show you. And here we go. And you see right there we have username and the rest of the string. So now let's do the next step. let's extract the username from the string without ID string. So do substring again, and I want a substring from the first position, where the user's username start, until the position of the, I don't know what these are called, two dots above each other, minus 2. So this position minus 1, 2. That will get us only the username. No matter how long the username is, that should be the username. Oops. So let's test it out again. And when you're working with strings like this, you really should test the whole time, because it's easy to think you're getting it right, but you're not. And that's right. Now we have the username. Lastly, we need to extract the score. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm calling this one score. Substring. And this time I want to go from these two dots, whatever they are called. And I want to end one character, I think, after the ending bracket. So let's get the index of the ending bracket. Minus the index of the two dots. If you do not understand this one, I'm just making sure that I only get the score, and you can copy this straight up. I realize this looks confusing, and this is not really how you do it when you download a good JSON NuGet package and do it instead. But this will work if you're gonna have very complex strings, JSON objects. I suggest you just figure out how to use a plugin for this, a NuGet package. There's probably stuff made for Unity. This is quicker for me. I don't want to have to deal with it. So let's populate the high score with the username and with the score, but we need to convert the score to an int. So convert to int 32. And there we go. I'm converting the string score to an integer and returning the high score. So we will loop through the list and deserialize every string and populate a list of high score objects. We need to display them somewhere, so create an empty game object, and inside that game object create a TextMesh Pro. I'm gonna call it something like high score output, good enough, and create a TextMesh Pro. This will be where we display the high score. I'm not gonna put too much time or any time into making this look nice. It's not what this is about. I'm gonna change the color so it's easier to see though, so black. Now we want to add a script here as well. So display high score, create and add the script, and double click to open. Now inside here, we first want a access to the database access. So in the start function, set the database access variable to game object dot find objects with object with tag, not an S. Find object with tag, database access. And then get component and get the database access out of that game object. Just like that. And I can't spell. Oh, made it worse. I'm just gonna copy this. God damn it. Oh, not my day. There we go, sorry. And now we need to apply the tag to the database game object as well. And create the tag. There we go, created, add it. Okay. So far so good. Now we want to create another variable for the text mesh pro that is attached to this game object where we want to display the high score. We need to import text mesh pro the using, and we want to get the text mesh pro just like that. Now we have access to the text mesh pro object. So let's create a new method to display the high score. And set the high score output text to the database. Yeah, this needs to be asynchronous because we gotta call the database, get what did I call this now? I have memory of a goldfish, I swear to God. Oh my God, I gotta go to that method. There we go. Awesome. And this will return a task. And we need to await the task. Not like that though. Await task. And now we need to I can't call it the same thing as the class, of course. I'm gonna call this method something else. So I'm calling it in text mesh. And now we cannot do it like this because it's not a string. It's a list of high score objects. So I'm gonna create a string by looping through all the score objects in the high score object list. So output plus equals, and this is what each line will say in the output. So first the username and then the score, just like that. And now we can just output the output. So set the high score output text to the output we just created. And now we need to call this function somewhere. So I'm gonna try to call it right here. And this should of course be high score output equals get component, not dot. That's my bad, guys. And this we have to do this in a, it needs to wait because at compile time we need the database to connect before we call it. So let's give it 2 seconds before we call the display. Now if we hit play, this should actually work. We should load the data from the database in about 2 seconds. And there we go. Straight from the database to the Unity UI. How cool is that? So let's add a few scores. So I'm gonna go to the start function in the database access class and just hard code in a few more scores so we can see that it all works. So now when I compile, I will add these 2 scores, and then 2 seconds later I will fetch them from the database and display them in Unity again. Oh, it works, but we need to make sure each is on a new line. So let's add a new line character when we construct the string. Right there, \n. Like that. Okay. Now remove this, or else we will just keep adding them every time we compile. Let's try this out. Awesome. Look at that. We're getting there. And if we update the cluster on the website, we can see that we're actually saving and getting the information from the database. So I created a save button as well. It's just like all the other buttons, there's no difference. There's a text mesh pro attached to it it's called save, and it has the key feedback script. So in the key detection script, let's add another if-else statement, because if we hit the save button, we want to save whatever is typed so far. And there's no error checking here. You might want to check that player text output is longer than 0 or whatever, but I'm not doing this right now. So I'm just gonna copy the database access that I did earlier so I don't have to type it again. It will be the same. Yeah, just like that. Paste it in, not there, in the start function. And when the player hits save, we call the save score to database, we insert whatever is typed, and I will insert just a random score right now. When you do this, you of course want to add the score that the player has accumulated in the game, but I do not have a score right now, so I'm just gonna get a random number and call the method with, so that this will be saved as the score. Okay, let's test it out. This is using the link cable. So I'm kind of connected, or I am connected to the computer still, but I'm in the headset. I saved it. And let's check out the website to see that we actually saved it. And that works. It's saved right there. So let's do this. Invoke repeating will, for as long as the scene is active or the script is active, we will call this display high score every 10 seconds. First after 2 seconds, and then every 10 seconds. So now when we add a new high score, we get it straight in the list, straight from the database. And just to prove to you guys that this works, I built to my Quest, and this is not connected to the computer anymore. This is purely from the Quest. We have to wait a few seconds for the invoke repeating to call. You can make that quicker if you like, if you need to. And just like that. So now there's so much you can do with this. You can do a cross-platform game like that squirrel game, whatever it's called, on the Oculus Quest. So users can interact with their phones, because you can just call the same database and share the information. You can do high score lists like I do here, and so much more. It's up to you guys. Please, if you have any issues, you can just ask me and I will try to help out. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Take it easy.